respecting everyone. So I'll read. Respect everyone, even if some people strike you as a bit daft. Remember, God dwells in all beings and can express His wisdom in countless ways, sometimes quite surprisingly. I myself have found that when I listened open-mindedly to someone who I thought a little foolish, it was that person specifically whom God chose to tell me something I needed to hear. There's a wonderful story in the path that is really worth sharing as it really sheds light very much on this very important topic. Swami Kriyananda was with Yogananda in the late 40s, perhaps early 50s, and they were at a playhouse in the Los Angeles area. And there was quite a spectacle going on. There was this world-famous boxer or wrestler, I'm forgetting which, and he was there on the stage performing a dance. Well, in the ring, he was professional, very well known, famous even, but there dancing as he was on the stage, he didn't quite have the skills that he had as a professional boxer wrestler. And so he began, with the orchestra and so forth, backing him to create this dance, which was basically a hunter chasing, a deer. And so it went on. And Swami Kriyananda was sitting right next to Yogananda, and it was basically an hilarious spectacle. And the man was not in time with the music, and he would go over to the orchestra pit and apologizing to the audience, say, they're not professionals. And he would, try to encourage them to play a little bit better, and then he would again dance a bit. And it went through. There was quite a lot of steps and so forth. It was part of the storyline, and it was basically falling apart. And Swami Kriyananda with Yogananda were having an extremely difficult time holding back the tears of mirth and so forth. And Yogananda at one point elbowed Swami and said, when Swami let out a little bit of a guffaw, he said, "Don't." He squeaked out the word "don't," because he was holding on with all of his self-control that he wouldn't burst out laughing himself. Well, at the end, after again the spectacle went on, they saw to the side that the curtains were being parted hastily, right in the middle of the guy's dance, and they saw the boxer wrestler striding off the stage. Of course, he was going to share his peace of mind with whoever had dropped the curtains in the middle of his performance. Well, the Swami had said that he had never really laughed that hard and enjoyed something so much as this outrageous spectacle. But the fascinating thing was this. When the man, after the performance, came to greet Yogananda, he was very indignant that people didn't appreciate his fine dance and so forth, and the immature orchestra and so forth. He was complaining. And Yogananda, and it's really quite extraordinary, it really speaks of his love and respect for others. He completely understood from that man's reality that he had been hurt, that he didn't get the kind of appreciation for his dance. And there was no more suppressing mirth, there was no more suppressing the laughter, because Yogananda, right there and then, seeing this soul before him that was in need of comfort and support, was there for him 100%. And Swami Kriyananda was very, very impressed, because how many people, after, again, wiping away the tears, and perhaps they were wiping away the tears even as the man approached them, and then right there, able to change on a dime and share with real feeling that he understood because he did understand, because of that respect. I also remember many, many times with my parents who were very, very devoted. They were very strong in themselves, and yet at the same time they really had merged as one. And they had been married about 60 years. And my mother, who loved to tell stories, was telling another story. We had heard it many times. And so I glanced over at my dad, and I saw that he was totally there for her. And just like he had heard the story for the first time. And I was so appreciative. I never forgot that. And it wasn't the only time. It happened every time. I never, ever remember my father looking off to the side, perhaps, glancing at his watch, any of those things. Oh my gosh, the story again. Never. And it had a real impact on me. As Yogananda said, when you're with people, be with people wholeheartedly. When you're with God, be with God wholeheartedly. I had an experience a long time ago, maybe it was 20, 30 years ago, when my wife and I, Roma, were living in the village. And as everyone gets, what we call in the States, I'm not sure what you call it here in India, junk mail. And usually, of course, with junk mail, at a glance, you don't even have to open it up, it's tossed in the trash can. And so I remember this so clearly, as if it happened yesterday, that this particular piece of junk mail, a part of maybe 5 or 6 pieces of junk mail that I was to throw in the trash, somehow spoke to me, not audibly, but intuitively, that I shouldn't throw that piece of junk mail away. I thought, okay, I'll throw it away tomorrow. I didn't quite understand, I thought, oh, something from the subconscious. What is this? And the next day, I went to throw it away, and again, the thought was, no, you should keep this. And so, I just figured I was being fooled, and so why not go along with the gag? And so, day after day, and the span was a week, I kept on trying to throw this thing away. And finally, I thought, well, okay, I know that I'm going to be fooled. It's just a silly advertisement for washing machines or who knows what. And so let me go along with it. And I opened it up, and sure enough, as I was going through the page, it was maybe a 7-page piece, I didn't find anything at all. And I thought, well, this is so strange. What is this? The last page was just a very, very short little piece of this woman who had passed in the local area there in Northern California. And she said that someone remembered, rather, something that she often would say, which was in many ways a hallmark of who she was and so forth, that you should respect everyone and love everyone because everyone is carrying a burden. And I thought, wow, thank God I saved this, because at that particular time, I don't remember the circumstance, I was in particular need of that counsel. And just as Swamiji shared with us a story some time back that a woman came in and she was in need of counseling. And he was just thinking, oh my gosh, perhaps it was the end of the day, I don't know what. And she went on and on and on about all kinds of stories, and it appeared that she was a bit crazy. And yet he very patiently listened to her and so forth. At the end, she said something that he really, really needed to hear. And I thought, my goodness, I'm going to file that story away because it speaks of what really all of us need to remember, that God is everywhere, God is a director playing all parts, and that if we will, with respect and with love, be open to the experience of life and how God and the great ones can use any instrument to help us grow spiritually, then we won't miss very, very important roadsides that may even be life-changing for us. I enjoyed the saying when I first stumbled upon it, and I enjoy it now. If you want to change the world, change yourself. And I thought, that's very good. I don't know who came up with that, but I applaud them, because many, many times the thought, and it's a very strong thought really in this world, is let's change everything, but let's not work on myself because it's too big of a project. I don't even know where to start. And yet the yogis discovering long, long ago that that is exactly what we need to do. We need to begin working with ourselves and bit by bit change our thoughts, keep our heart open, all of the things that we all are striving for in reaching our highest potential. And so in respecting others, it's important, and I really can't emphasize it enough, that we understand that when we're in a higher state of consciousness, when we're here, the point between the eyebrows, when we're in our heart center, it's very, very easy to extend ourselves, to be loving, to be compassionate. And so that's what we need to do, to be continually in a state of upliftment to the extent that we can be. And that when we find our energy plummeting down, we really have a serious challenge upon us. And if we are interacting with people when our consciousness is low, then it's going to be very difficult to see the God in them and to respect the God in them. And so it's our responsibility in this world that is not exercising much respect. You see it everywhere, whether you're glancing at newspapers and so on. There's just such little respect. And again, it all stems from inside. People have gotten themselves out of balance, and the net result is they just feel like, you know, what's the use? As one of the monks in one of the religious organizations, because he was just getting pummeled by, you know, so many challenges in the organization. Finally he said, you know, I have a new mantra, what the hell? And I thought, my goodness, what kind of a mantra is that? Because we're trying our best, you know, in this world. We have just a short time, but he had gotten to the point where it was just too much. It was just one thing after another, and basically he had lost altitude. And I still respect him, and he was a funny guy, and I really don't think that state of consciousness lasted long. I think he was just kind of having fun with that particular time period that he found himself in, and was able to lift himself up and soar further into God. And so as we proceed in this world, then it is very, very important that we understand that there are very, 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 very many realities that we will be facing in people. And if we want to really grow in happiness and grow in joy, we will begin to appreciate that when God is giving us a lot of grace, we love that. As I like to think of God as the blacksmith, he pounds on us, he heats us up, that's the testing experience. Then he sticks us in that cool water, that's joy, we love that. Unfortunately, when he takes us out, he says we're not done yet. And he, again, repeats the process of pounding on us and heating us up and so forth. But as we begin to love ourselves, which is a sign of spiritual maturity, respect ourselves and so forth, we begin to understand that God comes to us very often with very needed lessons from people. And it's not always going to be that pleasant. But if we have the right attitude, we begin to respect God's good judgment, that he makes no mistakes. I like to think of God as the school teacher. My wife was raised by a school teacher. I was raised by a school teacher, so it comes as a good example that the school teacher, in this instance God, the gurus, every day, every evening you might say, come up with a nice lesson plan for the next day. And it's absolutely perfect. Everything that they send to us is meant to expand our consciousness and to help us grow spiritually. And as we're able to respect that this is done from perfection, God is perfection, then we begin to think, well, if we have a negative experience and someone comes and perhaps they speak harshly or even unfairly, then let's keep in mind that God, when He was coming up with a lesson plan, saying, well, at 3 o'clock, I think what I'll do is I'll send in the boss for the 5th time that day. And I think that what I'll do is, again, for the 5th time that day, I'll have the boss, really speaking, harshly and being very demanding and so on. I think that will be good because they need to lift their energy a bit. And they need to somehow open their heart and be compassionate. When we think in those terms that everything is being in true detail given to us, every thought, every feeling, everything, because again it's all God, then there isn't as much time wasted in saying, well, this wasn't mine, this was a mistake. God somehow got the lessons plan scrambled, and this was for Vivek. And somehow it came to me, and I'll have to have a word with him, because this obviously is not mine. I've been tested for 3 days in a row. What is this? And so, as we grow in respect for ourselves and respect for others, we begin to appreciate, as Swamiji, and I've shared this before, and it really is a good one to share again. He was with friends that he had known for a long time, and they were needing a lesson, and he was giving it to them very strongly, and it was not pleasant as he was just pouring out. Though he loved them and respected them, he was knowing that they needed to make this adjustment, perhaps their attitude, whatever. And at one point, he was done. And so they kind of dusted themselves off. And then he said, so sweetly, as they were parting, he said, you're doing the very best that you can for where you are. And then just as they were, almost out the door, he said, and I'm also doing the very best where I am, for where I am at. And I thought, what a very sweet thing to do, because Swami Kriyananda always, and he was truly an example of great respect for others, he always was doing all that he can to meet people at their reality. And he would say when people would put him up on a pedestal, as is common with people that are highly advanced as he was, he would say, well, I'm your brother, disciple, and really, the only difference between you and me, if there is any difference, is that I've been at it longer. I thought, wow, now that is respect. There wasn't any need for him to say anything other than that. I've just been at it longer, fine. And so the experience that we're having in this world is not necessarily an easy one. Yogananda said, in regards to spiritual path, it's a big job, and we know that after even days on the spiritual path, not to mention as weeks and months and years unfold, it's a challenge. But if we can appreciate, as Ananda Ma said, when there was a true concern from a disciple, as we were all concerned, especially in these very difficult times, would the world, basically disintegrate? There was a true fear that this individual had, voicing to this great saint. And Ananda Ma, in a very childlike way, said, don't you think God, who has created this world, knows how to take care of it? And so that gives us this growing desire to go beneath the experience of life. And as we are able to do so, we find God. God is there. That deep, deep inner stillness as a reflection of the Father who is beyond it all. I always appreciated the thought of the Trinity, that there's God beyond all of creation and bliss, where we've all come from. And then the Mother who, takes care of all of creation. And then the reflection of the Father that's beneath it all, that deep, deep inner stillness that is beneath absolutely everything, all that we see. And I thought that's very good, because we need to have the experience in the midst of of exacting activity where we can be still. Because Yogananda said, God is stillness. And so, really, as a tool to understand the importance of self-respect and growing respect for our own self in others, we need to spend more time in this quiet place within our own souls. And as we're able to experience that, we don't get so caught up in all of the activity. I was thinking just recently of something that I found very helpful, that really thoughts are just vibrating, feelings are just vibrating, this physical body is just vibrating, the world is vibrating. Who wants to go beyond vibration? Instead of thinking about breaking everything down. I don't like this. It's just vibrating, which is a way to say that it's trying to coax us off our center. And so in that way, it becomes very impersonal. Yogis are impersonal. And we begin to think, let me just go beyond vibration. Instead of constantly getting caught up in the drama, which is always there, beckoning us to get ourselves immersed. Just think of, oh, this is another vibration that's trying to get me to go into this experience. Is this going to bring me joy? Take a look. If it is, fine. But if it's not, then we need to pull back and get back into our own soul. And so when we think in terms of respect, we begin to find that there is a growing reverence for life. Because when there is respect, then we begin to think, God really does know what He's doing. And many times I've thought, if I were God, and of course we all are gods, but here's a thought to share. If I were God, would I have just stayed in the bliss state? Or what have I thought? I think it'd be kind of fun to just have all of this bedlam and take from my bliss state, this experience of creation, and then in time, then have it all come back. What fun! And I thought, something. How can I not respect God and not appreciate Him and love Him when I would really, if it was my place to do it, would do exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. When I came to grips with that, I thought, we really do enjoy this on some level, because we are joy. And even when we're going through, a real trial, if we go down deep enough, we'll have the experience similar to what Swami Kriyananda had when he was thrown out of his organization, and it was an extremely tough time for him. That's an understatement. He found that when he was coaxed to give a lecture, which he did not want to give, but somehow someone said, please, if you could only talk a little bit on this subject, we would be so happy. And when he was done, he was feeling great suffering at that time, and during the lecture, someone came up to him and said, oh, I felt such joy in your talk. He said, he thought, the guy must have been at another lecture. He couldn't have possibly been in mine. But when he introspected, he had to admit that amidst this tremendous suffering that went on for a long time, there was that joy. And so as we dive deep into the very precious quality of respect, self-respect, respect for others, then we begin to see there is that joy. And that joy drives us, and that love drives us, and that compassion and all these spiritual qualities drives us to begin to make our life sweet through appreciation that God does a fabulous job in every aspect, a fabulous job. And we may not quite understand it. That's obvious. But as we are growing spiritually, we begin to see more and more that God does love us. The love is never withdrawn. The joy is there. And so let us all do what we can to make deeper efforts to respect ourselves. We have to begin in exploring our own soul first. Begin to appreciate the blessings that come from this exploration. And then as we do so, open our eyes a little wider, especially the spiritual eye as we can, and see what is really going on. As Yogananda said in conclusion, if only you could see, as he was talking to disciples, if only you could see what I see. I see world's light. So, God bless, and we hope that you have a happy rest of your evening, those of you that have tuned into the webinar tonight.